He was known as one of the most powerful underworld figures in Hong Kong, a man that even the toughest gangsters respected. Most of the strongmen in the organization had once served under his command. He personally intervened to settle problems on movie sets for Stephen Chow, helping broker the legendary partnership between Chow and Charles Hume's Wins Entertainment. At one point, he risked his life entering Macau to defend Charles Hume, nearly dying after striking the powerful godfather Yuan Kwokao, quelling a major gang conflict in the process. When Jimmy Hume clashed with businessman Young, Lam Kong's fury made even this influential figure fall silent. The arrogant enforcer of the Eastern Horse faction once received a slap across the face from Lam Kong, and didn't he dare fight back. When the Sun Yee On organization was nearing decline, Lam Kong swiftly gathered and empowered the strongest men, crushing rival factions with overwhelming force. In the underworld, a saying spread: when the Yuan family commands, the Lam clan conquers. Lam Kong was the chief enforcer Dai Jong Gwaan, and of Sun Yee on the operational brain and iron fist behind the Triades' dominance. Born in 1955 in Lufeng, Guangdong, his real name was Lam Si Hip, the eldest of 6 siblings. He grew up in a poor family after his father died young, leaving his mother to raise 7 children alone. He came from humble beginnings. Lam had an older cousin, Lam King, who had moved to Hong Kong decades earlier and joined forces with Sun Yee On's founder, Huang Qin, the Emperor of Kowloon. Lam King became a trusted lieutenant. When Huang Qin was deported to Taiwan in 1953, Lam King helped his eldest son, Huang Wo Yim, consolidate power back in Hong Kong. Later, Lam King brought his cousin Lam Kong to Hong Kong, recognizing his potential. Lam Kong was tall, physically imposing, and a skilled martial artist capable of taking on more than 10 men at once. By the late 1970s, as Sun Yee On expanded, he followed Lam King and Lam Sing, fighting bloody turf wars. First was the infamous Yuan Long battle, where they crushed the rival Wohopto Triad, shaking the entire underworld. Then came the legendary Doorgate War, which cemented Sun Yee On's dominance over crucial territories. Lam Kong led the new 4 Tigers, a squad of feared fighters, to storm Sim Sha Tsui, driving out the 14K's notorious Black and White Imp through sheer force and iron discipline. The Lam clan helped Sun Yee On grow to over 200,000 members during its golden age, becoming the largest triad organization in Hong Kong. In the late 1980s, Hong Kong's film industry exploded. Gang groups began deep infiltration into film production, using the business as a front for money laundering, extortion, and influence. Rival groups, like 14K, also made their moves, most notably Fu Yi Film Company, backed by the infamous Hu Tu-young and former Jet Li's manager. Actors were often extorted or physically threatened, and even megastars had no real protection. Andy Lau himself once spoke openly about the dangers actors faced at the time. Among these turbulent forces, one star was just beginning his rise: Stephen Chow. Known for his comedic genius but shy personality, Chow had poor relations with his management company. Charles and Jimmy Hume of Wins Entertainment saw a golden opportunity to sign him. But at that time, Stephen Chow was hesitant, knowing the Huang family's background and the risks involved. Coincidentally, Lam Kong had launched his own small film company and cast Stephen Chow in a gangster movie. During filming, Lam Kong and Stephen Chow became close friends. One day, while Stephen was shooting on set, a group of thugs arrived demanding protection money. Lam Kong, who happened to be drinking tea nearby, got word and immediately went to the scene. He ordered his men to protect Stephen, then personally confronted the gang leader. The moment the thug saw Lam Kong, his face turned pale. He nearly knelt down, begging for forgiveness. Lam Kong slapped him several times and sent him running with his crew. This act left a deep impression on Stephen Chow. He realized Lam Kong was not just powerful, but also someone who could protect him. Later, through Lam Kong's introduction, Stephen Chow officially joined forces with Wins Entertainment, marking the start of one of the most legendary partnerships in Hong Kong cinema. In the early 1990s, Macau's gambling industry became a battleground for triads. Groups from Hong Kong, including Sun Yee On and 14K, flooded the city, competing for lucrative casino territories. The local Gang, led by the feared Bodhisattva Godfather, dominated the area and formed a defensive alliance called the Four-Company Union to resist the outsiders. Sun Yee On, led by Huang Waba and supported by Charles and Jimmy Huang, moved in to expand their territory. Tensions escalated until one night, near a restaurant outside a hotel resort, Ovasambayanjiku soldiers surrounded the Huang brothers and their men, who were caught off guard while having a late-night meal. Outnumbered, Charles Huang and his crew held their ground as some rushed to call for reinforcements. Word reached Lam Kong, who was stationed nearby with over 100 men. Furious, he drew a blade from his belt and charged straight into the enemy ranks, catching Anjika's leader off guard and slashing him across the arm, leaving a deep scar. The sudden assault broke the enemy's formation. Lam Kong led his men to rescue the Huang brothers, forcing Anjiku to retreat. The incident became an instant legend in Triad folklore, remembered as Lam Kong's 3 blades to save the boss. Even Macau's casino tycoon had to step in to mediate afterward. As Hong Kong entered the new millennium, the underworld landscape began to change. The government increased pressure on organized crime, the economy shifted, and society modernized. The once dominant Triad empires faced new realities. Sun Yee On, at its peak, with over 200,000 members, began to scale back illegal operations and transition toward legitimate business. The Huang family and their allies shifted to behind-the-scenes management, using their influence more subtly in real estate, entertainment, and other industries. During this period, Woshing Wohoa and Jihoa seized the opportunity to expand, taking over parts of Simsha Sui, a district once built and defended by the Lam clan. Watching the territory he helped conquer fall into enemy hands, Lam Kong was furious. To fight back, he identified and promoted a new generation of bold, ruthless men within the organization. Among them was Li Tailong, a ferocious and daring gangster who became known as the Overlord of Simsha Sui. Under Lam Kong's backing, Li Tailong launched a violent campaign, slashing the 14KSC, Sung Su Doa, smashing rival gang tattoos with wine bottles, and reclaiming turf through raw brutality. For a time, Sun Yee On regained its strength, pushing Woshing Wo back and stabilizing its position. But society was changing fast. The glory days of brutal street battles were fading. Modern law enforcement, surveillance, and public pressure made it harder for triads to operate as they once did. Many old-school gangsters either adapted or vanished. In his later years, Lam Kong gradually stepped away from active underworld operations, becoming more of a respected elder figure, a living legend. Unlike many triad bosses who faded in silence or died violently, Lam Kong remained publicly visible. Every year on his birthday, he hosted lavish banquets in Simsha Sui, with dozens of tables filled with influential figures from different circles. Old triad leaders, businessmen, entertainers, and community figures. Surprisingly, his invitations carried patriotic poems, a way of showing his allegiance to China and reinventing his image as a community leader rather than a feared gangster. He also began donating to charities and participating in patriotic events, blending the line between his underworld past and public respectability.
Have you ever heard of a man who started with nothing, just his bare hands and a will of iron, and rose to become one of the most powerful figures in Hong Kong's underworld? Today, we're diving deep into the incredible, almost unbelievable life of Lam King, a man who went from being a humble dock porter to the right-hand man of a dragonhead, a triad marshal who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. This isn't just a story about crime. It's a story about ambition, loyalty, and the complex, hidden world of the triads. So, buckle up, because we're about to explore the gritty streets and shadowy boardrooms that Lam King once ruled. Lam King's story begins in the bustling, chaotic docks of post-war Hong Kong. He was born into poverty, with a few prospects beyond a life of hard labor. Like many young men of his time, he found work as a porter, hauling heavy loads under the relentless sun. The docks were a world unto themselves, a tough environment where only the strong survived. It was here that Lam King learned his first lessons in survival, negotiation, and the raw power of street smarts. He wasn't just strong, he was sharp, observant, and possessed a natural charisma that made people listen. He saw how the world worked, not in the clean offices of Central, but in the sweat and grit of the waterfront where connections and reputation were worth more than gold. It was in this crucible that Lam King first came into contact with the Wo Xing Wu, one of Hong Kong's oldest and most influential triad societies. Triads weren't just gangs, they were complex organizations with deep roots in the community, offering protection, loans, and a sense of brotherhood to those on the margins of society. For a young, ambitious man like Lam King, the triad offered a ladder to a different kind of life. He started at the very bottom, a 49 Jai, a common foot soldier, but he quickly distinguished himself. He wasn't just another brawler, he was a thinker, a strategist. He was reliable, loyal, and fearless, qualities that did not go unnoticed by the higher-ups. His rise was meteoric. He demonstrated an uncanny ability to resolve disputes, not always with his fists, but with his words and his wits. He understood the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that defined the underworld. He could mediate conflicts between warring factions, secure lucrative territories, and manage the society's various enterprises with a level of professionalism that was rare. He wasn't just a gangster, he was a businessman. His reputation grew, and soon he was no longer just a soldier. He became a Red Pole, a senior enforcer, a man whose name carried weight. The peak of Lam King's power came when he became the trusted marshal, the right-hand man, to the Triad's Dragon Head, the supreme leader. This was a position of immense authority. He was the Dragon Head's enforcer, strategist, and confidant all rolled into one. He commanded a legion of followers and oversaw the society's vast operations. Under his guidance, the Wo Xing Wu expanded its influence, moving from traditional street-level activities into more sophisticated ventures. Lam King was at the center of it all, a puppet master pulling the strings in a dangerous and high-stakes game. But what made Lam King so successful? It was a unique combination of old-school triad values and modern business acumen. He understood the importance of Yi Hei, or righteous brotherhood. He was known for being fiercely loyal to his comrades and generous to his followers. This earned him unwavering devotion. At the same time, he was a pragmatist. He recognized that the old ways of street brawls and turf wars were becoming obsolete. The future lay in legitimate businesses, in politics, in weaving the triad's influence into the very fabric of the city. He was a pioneer, a man who saw the changing tides and knew how to navigate them. However, a life lived in the shadows always comes at a cost. As his power grew, so did the number of his enemies, both within rival gangs and from law enforcement. The police, particularly the Organized Crime and Triad Bureau, had him firmly in their sights. His life was a constant dance with danger, a tightrope walk where one false step could lead to a prison cell, or worse. He lived under constant threat, knowing that his empire, built on a foundation of fear and loyalty, could crumble at any moment. The very power he had fought so hard to obtain became a gilded cage. The end of Lam King's reign wasn't marked by a dramatic shootout, but by the slow, inevitable march of time and the changing laws. As Hong Kong modernized and law enforcement tactics became more sophisticated, the space for old-school triad leaders like him began to shrink. He faced multiple investigations and arrests over the years. While he was a master at evading conviction, the constant pressure took its toll. His story serves as a powerful reminder that even the most formidable empires are not invincible. The world changes, and those who cannot or will not change with it are eventually left behind. Today, the name Lam King is a legend in the annals of Hong Kong's underworld. His life story is a fascinating and complex tapestry, woven with threads of ambition, violence, loyalty, and betrayal. He was a product of his time, a man who rose from the lowest rungs of society to walk among kings, albeit kings of a hidden and dangerous kingdom. His journey from a dock porter to a triad marshal is more than just a crime story. It's a compelling human drama about the pursuit of power and the price one pays to achieve it. It's a glimpse into a world that exists just beneath the surface of our own, a world that continues to fascinate and horrify us in equal measure. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of Lam Kong. It's these real-life stories that are often more incredible than fiction. If you found this journey into Hong Kong's underworld as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into the hidden corners of history. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if there are other figures you'd like me to cover. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.